Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. This week you join us here off of the coast of Belgium. We left Katzand in the Netherlands this morning. My name is Mes and this is my fiancée Eva. I've spent the last 5 years doing a somewhat extensive refit on a 1987 Warrior 38. That process is documented in hundreds of videos here on YouTube. If you have a hankering for DIY videos, some of those might be worth checking out. We're right now on our way to the UK where we'll spend the winter before crossing the Atlantic next year. This week started out when we left Scheveningen early Sunday morning and we were treated to a beautiful view of the lighthouse with the sun just starting to come up in the background. The peace and quiet was short-lived though. Just south of Scheveningen is Rotterdam, one of Europe's busiest ports. We called VTS, Vessel Traffic Service, and they helped guide us across the busy entrance. With the help of AIS we could easily have crossed on our own, but VTS likes to be informed. On the way to Katzand we had basically perfect sailing conditions, flat calm and just enough wind to move us along at 6 knots. It was exhilarating and very rewarding to feel Athena plowing her way through the water on a beautiful sunny day after having spent the last 5 years refitting her rather than sailing. We arrived in Katzand, an almost brand new marina, late in the afternoon and got to enjoy the amazing fall weather. Today we're not quite so lucky with the wind. It is there, but it's just a little on the light side if you want to go from A to B as quick as possible. We're flying at around 8 knots, but we're doing that under engine and a little bit of sail. We have about 1800 revs on our Volvo Penta D240 and a full jib just to give us that last little push. Why do we care so much about speed? Well, because we want to go to Dover, and to get to Dover we have to cross the Strait of Dover, and that's this area here. Now there's some traffic separation out here, so we're kind of locked into this route because we should really be crossing that as close as 90 degrees to the traffic, so we can't change this route much. And also we'd like to cross the strait here before it gets dark because there is a ton of traffic out here. So yeah, right now speed is our friend. The reason we're doing almost 8 knots right now is because we've got the current pushing us along, but that is just about to change, which very demoralizing is going to give us a ginormous drop in speed. It is an almost flat calm day out here and the sun is out, so it's actually super nice. If we could just have a little bit more wind.
When we left Denmark, we were not expecting to stay in the Netherlands for as long as we did because of the visa issues. We stayed for about a week and a half, but we really enjoyed it. We really liked Amsterdam and visiting The Hague. And thank you so much to all of our Dutch friends who came and visited us while we were there.
It looks like we're just crossed into France, so it's time for
New Country Ritual! Now underway to help pass the time, we like to do our pits and peaks from whatever city or country we were just in. When we were refitting the boat, maybe we did it a little more hourly. But let's start off. Mes, what was your pit and your peak?
So my peak for the Netherlands was definitely the people. So many nice people.
Yeah.
And also I really enjoyed Amsterdam and The Hague, wonderful cities. And the pit, well, I don't know if there really was a pit. We had a visit from the police just to check us out, and that was a little bit of a sinking feel in the stomach, so I guess that's the closest we came to a pit, but nothing was wrong, so everything worked out. That's kind of me out of the way. So Ava, what was your pit and peak?
Well, my pit was definitely the poop tank situation.
Oh yeah.
That was
we had
literally a poopy situation.
We had a tiny leak from the holding tank. More about that later.
And my peak, definitely the people. Oh my gosh, the Dutch are so nice and so helpful. I think we've gotten so much information off of the Dutch people and just so friendly. And I really enjoyed The Hague and of course, Madurodam.
It's now much later in the day. We've been underway for about 11 hours. And as you might be able to tell by the orange suits, it's no longer nice, sunny and warm. But we're coming up on our turn to cross the shipping lanes. So our alternative plan, in case we didn't want to go for Dover, was to pull into Calais. But yeah, the weather seems perfectly fine, so let's push on towards Dover. At our current snail pace of about 4 knots, it looks like we'll be arriving at Dover at 10:30 at night. So yeah, that's gonna be pitch black. We'll see if we push on towards Brighton or somewhere else, or if we go into Dover, but yeah, we'll figure that out later. For now, we'll just worry about weaseling our way out of this giant parking lot and making it safely across the channel. We're about through the first lane, but as you might be able to see behind me, we had some rain pass by, so visibility wasn't super awesome. But thank God for AIS and radar. All the little green blobs you can see here, those are other boats. As you can see, all the ones up here are moving that way, and the ones down here are moving that way. From a safety perspective and from just a comfort being aboard perspective, I think AIS is one of the best upgrades you can make to your boat. The only two boats I see in the other lane are these two. They're both going around 8 knots, so yeah, they should pass in front of us before we get there. On the screen they're clearly visible, but in real life they're just two tiny dots out there. Oof, that is certainly a dramatic looking sky over mainland Europe. There are our two friends from earlier, and as you can see, they're well clear of us. Thank you, magic box of AIS and radar. Ooh, would you look at that? The white cliffs of Dover and a sunset. We're still 6.5 miles out. When we're about 2 miles from the harbor, we're supposed to call traffic control on 74, and they'll guide us in and make sure we don't hit any other boats. And yeah, then Ava just called the marina, and there is a slip for us there. So yeah, we should be all good. Now there's just a small matter of not crashing into anything. The next morning we slept in a little bit and left around 7 o'clock. We would have liked to stay longer, but the weather was basically perfect for pushing on towards Brighton. We had cleared customs and immigration the night before, but we had forgotten to remove our yellow Q flag, which signals that you have yet to clear customs. So Ava took care of that while we were heading out of the harbor. Also, it is worth noting that, of course, we called Dover Port Control on VHF 74 before entering the harbour. Once out of the western entrance, we headed straight towards Brighton. After about 10 hours of nice, sunny, spiffy weather, we arrived in Brighton. The entrance can be a little bit tricky, but we had called ahead and were told to hug the red marker as a recent storm had moved the green markers. Once inside of the marina, we found an available spot in the visitor berthing section, identified by the yellow tops on the pilings. We've been here in Brighton for a few days, and we finally got our answer back from our second day COVID test, and we're both negative, so now we can head into Brighton and explore in good conscience. Brighton is a ginormous marina. They have something like 1,200 boats here, which is by far the biggest marina I've ever been in. There's a ton of restaurants, both over here and over there. Just right outside of the marina is this ginormous supermarket. It is really awesome. They have everything in there. We want to go see some of Brighton today, but my real top priority for the day is to secure us some data, some internet connection for the winter, and we've heard that EE should be the best, so let's see if we can find a SIM card from them. We're heading in that direction, and that should take us past a pier and also where there used to be a couple of other piers. We found the beach. I was kind of expecting a sandy beach. This is very pebbly.
So apparently there's a bit of pier drama here in Brighton. So where we're standing right now is the site, and what used to be the first Royal Suspension Chain Pier that was built in 1823. Immediately west of the Chain Pier is the Palace Pier. But before we get to the Palace Pier, we need to get to what's immediately west of the Palace Pier, which is the West Pier, which was built in 1866 and was running at the same time as the Chain Pier. That's when this big mama came in, the Palace Pier. When developers wanted to build the pier, they had one condition. They had to demolish the Chain Pier, which was going to be a huge undertaking for them. But luckily it was already decrepit, and in 1896 a huge storm swept her away into the ocean. But wait, there's more. In 2003, long after the West Pier had gone through bankruptcy and was pretty much left to rot, there was a huge fire, and what was left of it was burnt to the ground. And today, all that remains is the metal framework. And thus, Palace Pier is the last one standing. And today, you can still walk along the pier, check out some rides, play some arcade games, or just enjoy the coast.
We spent a few hours wandering around the center of town, which is very charming with tons of shops and restaurants. But as is often the case, the thing you end up enjoying the most is not on any tourist map. We came across this fountain with a bunch of young seagulls living it up. They even had a little sunbathing area set up next to the fountain on the lawn. I know it's silly, but the seagulls looked like they were having a really good time, and I just really enjoyed that. Besides enjoying the seagulls yesterday, we also accomplished the main goal of the outing, which was to get our hands on a SIM card for data over the winter. Unfortunately, because we're only going to be in the UK for 6 months, our only option was pay as you go. Now that limits us to 100 gigabytes per month, which may seem like a lot, but it's really not that much. Once we're done reinforcing the solar arch, the plan is to install some antennas up there, and those antennas are going to be connected to this local marine stuff. This is a Wi-Fi booster, and there's also a booster for cellular signal. But yeah, that's going to be for later. For now, I'm just going to pop the SIM card in our white cellular Wi-Fi box. I've popped the SIM card in, and we have a connection that seems to be working. I also run a speed test, which gave a somewhat interesting result. 2 megabytes up and 24 down. I'm not too impressed by that result, but let's reserve judgment until we get to Gosport and see what it's like there. And we're going there tomorrow, so yeah, we'll see. But let's change topic to something completely different. In the beginning of this video, Ava mentioned last week's poop incident. And in last week's video, I tried installing this little sensor to prevent us from having that incident again. I couldn't get it to work last week, and it turns out that's because the manual that came with the sensor is for an older version of the controller. So our controller behaves slightly different. I shall grab this with my fingers to emulate a full holding tank, and then when I hit the flush button, we should see a red LED here and hear a beeping sound. Just like that. So all that's left to do now is just to adhere the sensor in place on the holding tank, and then we should hopefully never ever again have any kind of overflow. Early Saturday morning, we wanted to make the final jump from Brighton to Gosport. With a light tug on the aft line to force the bow out, we were underway, sliding past our in-front neighbour without incident. That's Brighton behind us there. We left about half an hour ago, and we're heading towards Gosport. We're all the way over here, Gosport is there, it's only about 40 miles, and we've got the current pushing us along for the first bit of the trip, so it should be a fairly smooth ride. Ava's keeping an eye out for lobster pods, and behind her there, we get one last glimpse of the West Pier. We had a lot of fun in Brighton. It's a really cool town, the people are wonderful, and the marina was amazing. There's been a little bit of a twist to the visa situation, because Ava and I were under the impression that we could stay in the UK for 6 months, and then we could reset those 6 months by just going to, for instance, Denmark for a little bit of time. But it turns out it's 6 months in a rolling year, at least according to the immigration or border officer. So yeah, we probably won't be coming back to Brighton. So in the spring, we're probably going to be heading to Ireland instead. So yeah, this is our last glimpse of Brighton. It's about 5 or 6 hours later. Right in there is Portsmouth. Over here is the Isle of Wight. And right in front of us is a cool remnants of the Second World War, which is a submarine barrier. Of course, we can't really see it, it's below the surface, but it's right in here. I'm gonna take a crazy guess and assume that that's those yellow markers we see in there, but yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm assuming you can't, but I would love to check out the inside of that thing. Our plan is to spend the winter in Gosport. It's always exciting coming into a new marina or an anchorage, but this time even more so because we plan on calling this place home for a while. We snaked our way through the marina and finally found El Pontoon, berth number 15. Ta-da! Welcome to Premier Marina, Gosport. We're really excited to be here. This area has a ton of nautical history. For instance, the old Camper and Nicholson yard is just on the other side of the marina, and the entire place is littered with museums. On a quick little side note, the visibility in the water is really good here, and I noticed that Athena's cover coat seemed to be doing really well. It doesn't look like there's any growth on there at all. We haven't really checked out any of this area yet, but I think we'll save that for next week's video. The big surprise this week was definitely the immigration stuff here in the UK, because Ava and I, like I mentioned, were both under the impression that we could both be here for 6 months and that we could then reset those 6 months by just leaving the country for like a weekend or something like that. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, the border officer or the customs or immigration guy we talked to was of a very much different opinion, where it's 6 months in a rolling year. So if any of you guys have the inside scoop on how that stuff really works, then we would love to hear from you. So go ahead and leave a comment down below. With the fall weather we're having right now, it feels like we could continue sailing forever. But of course, the main reason for us finding somewhere we could hunker down for the winter is so that we can switch back into DIY mode and finish the last few projects, or well, I say few, but the last projects we have aboard the boat. So yeah, next week it's going to be time for us to start switching into DIY mode again. We need to find a good stainless guy, we need to find a good canvas shop, we need to get our hands on a bunch of materials and do a bunch of planning. And we don't really have any of the materials yet. There are probably still a couple of the smaller projects we can knock out next week. But yeah, next week is going to be mainly focused on planning and just figuring out a stainless guy, canvas shop, and just, yeah, figuring out everything for the winter. We're going to be working on a bunch of different stuff this winter, so it's going to be a little something for everyone. Once the arch is reinforced, we're going to be installing solar panels. We're going to have to figure out which water maker to go with and install it. And if you've got a suggestion as to which model we should go with, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. We're also going to be putting a floor in here in the cabin sole. We're going to be finishing all of the trim in here. We're going to be installing the last bit of C-zone stuff, digital switching stuff here in the saloon to really bump that up to 11. And yeah, just a whole bunch of different stuff. And oh yeah, the wind vane. We also need to get the wind vane modified and get that installed so that's ready for next year. So yeah, like I said, a whole bunch of different stuff.
We're really excited to finally be in our slip for the winter and be able to settle down and get into a routine. We also hope you're as excited as we are to get back into DIY mode. I might have to get back into following Mads around with a vacuum mode.
Yeah, one of us is definitely more excited about dust than the other. So yeah, but I think we'll end this week's video here, and we hope to see all you guys back here aboard Athena next week for some DIY fun. So yeah, as always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you!